Welcome back to Mystery Behind It, my fellow truth seekers. Today we're diving into the bizarre world of The Simpsons, a show that seemingly predicted the future more times than we can count. Did they tap into some cosmic consciousness, or are these just uncanny coincidences? From Donald Trump's presidency to the discovery of the Higgs boson particle, we'll examine 20 times The Simpsons seemed to know what was coming before it happened. We're talking mind-blowing stuff here, folks. So buckle up, get your thinking caps on, and prepare to question everything you thought you knew about cartoons, predictions, and the very fabric of reality. Let's get started. Our first stop on this wild ride takes us back to the year 2000 with the episode Bart to the Future. Now, this episode throws some serious shade, predicting Lisa Simpson as President of the United States. No shocker there, Lisa's always been the brains of the family. But what really threw everyone for a loop was the mention of her inheriting a budget crunch from none other than President Trump. Now, at the time, this seemed about as likely as Homer winning a Nobel Prize. Trump was a businessman, a reality TV star, not exactly presidential material, right? But then, 2016 happened. The world watched in a collective state of bewilderment as Donald J. Trump actually became the 45th President of the United States. Coincidence? Perhaps. A satirical jab at Trump's very public political aspirations at the time? Definitely. But still, you gotta admit, it's a pretty wild prediction to get right. Even if it was meant as a joke, it makes you wonder, what else did The Simpsons writers know? Next up, we're tackling a prediction that still sends chills down people's spines. The supposed foreshadowing of the 9/11 attacks. In the 1997 episode, The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson, there's a scene where Homer holds up a magazine. On the cover, an image of the Twin Towers with the number 9 right next to them forming what looks like 9/11. Now I know what you're thinking. That's just too eerie to be a coincidence, right? But hold on, let's put on our critical thinking caps for a second. This episode aired 4 years before the tragic events of 9/11. While the resemblance is striking, it's important to remember that coincidences, however improbable, do happen. The number 9 was likely just a design choice, and the placement next to the Twin Towers, while unfortunate in retrospect, was probably unintentional. Still, the image has become a source of much debate and speculation, fueling the fire of The Simpsons' predictive powers. Fast forward to 1993, and we find ourselves in the midst of the Osaka flu outbreak in the episode Marge in Chains. Sound familiar? A highly contagious virus originating from Asia throws the world into chaos. Add to that a scene where a box of killer bees is accidentally unleashed, and you've got yourself a recipe for some serious conspiracy theories. The internet went wild with this one, folks. People were drawing parallels to the COVID-19 pandemic and the emergence of murder hornets, claiming The Simpsons had done it again. But let's be real for a second. Flu outbreaks have been a staple of movies and TV shows for decades. It's not exactly a stretch to imagine a future pandemic. And the killer bees? Well, that's just The Simpsons doing what they do best, satirizing our collective fears. Remember the killer bee panic of the 80s? Yeah, the writers sure did. This one feels more like a case of life imitating art, rather than the other way around. Chapter 4. Now let's talk about a prediction that actually came true, and it's a doozy. In the 1998 episode When You Dish Upon a Star, we see a sign in the background that reads, 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. Harmless background detail, right? Wrong. Fast forward to 2019 and the impossible happens. Disney, the entertainment behemoth, actually acquires 21st Century Fox in a mind-boggling $71.3 billion deal. The Simpsons had called it, and the internet exploded. Was this a case of insider information, or did the writers simply see the writing on the wall, predicting the future of the entertainment industry with uncanny accuracy? Whatever the explanation, this prediction cemented The Simpsons' status as pop culture prophets. It's enough to make you wonder if they have a crystal ball hidden somewhere in Springfield. Chapter 5. Let's journey back to 1995 to the episode Lisa's Wedding. In this futuristic glimpse into Lisa's future, we see her fiancé using a watch to make a phone call. Now remember, this was a time when cell phones were the size of bricks and the internet was still a baby. The idea of a watch you could talk into? Pure science fiction. But then, something amazing happened. Technology caught up with The Simpsons' imagination. Fast forward to the 2010 S and smartwatches become all the rage. Apple, Samsung, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. Suddenly wearing a mini computer on your wrist is not only possible, it's cool. Did the Simpsons invent the smartwatch? Of course not. But they envisioned it, decades before it became a reality. This is a classic example of how science fiction often inspires real-world innovation. It makes you wonder, what other technological marvels have the Simpsons predicted that we haven't even thought of yet? Chapter 6. Hold on to your hats, folks, because this next one is going to get a little nerdy. In the 1998 episode, The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, we see Homer trying his hand at being an inventor. In one scene, he's scribbling equations on a chalkboard, and one of those equations bears a striking resemblance to the formula for the Higgs boson, a particle that gives mass to all matter. Now, the Higgs boson wasn't actually discovered until 2012, 14 years after this episode aired. Coincidence? The internet didn't think so. People were amazed, claiming Homer had somehow predicted a major scientific discovery. But, hold on. While Homer's equation is close, it's not 100% accurate. Physicists have debunked this as a fun coincidence, pointing out that the equation is a mishmash of different formulas. Still, it's pretty impressive for a cartoon dad who loves donuts and Duff beer. Maybe there's more to Homer than meets the eye. Chapter 7. Three-eyed fish, a mutation too real? Remember Blinky, the three-eyed fish from the episode Two Cars in Every Garage and Three Eyes on Every Fish? He was a product of Springfield's nuclear pollution, a symbol of environmental carelessness. A cartoonish exaggeration, right? Well, in 2011, a real three-eyed fish was discovered in a reservoir in Argentina, not far from a nuclear power plant. Coincidence? You tell me. While mutations are not uncommon in nature, the timing of this discovery, so soon after the Fukushima nuclear disaster, sent shockwaves around the world. People were quick to draw comparisons to Blinky, questioning the safety of nuclear power and the potential consequences of environmental neglect. This eerie, real-life echo of a Simpsons episode served as a stark reminder that sometimes, truth is stranger than fiction. Chapter 8, The Capitol Riot, a disturbing premonition? The year is 1996. The episode, The Day the Violence Died. In one scene, a mob of angry protesters storms the Capitol building, armed and chaotic. At the time, it was a shocking yet ultimately fictional portrayal of political unrest. Then came January 6, 2021. The world watched in horror as a real mob, fueled by misinformation and anger, stormed the U.S. Capitol building. The similarities to the Simpsons episode were undeniable. While depictions of political unrest are nothing new in media, the timing and visual parallels were chilling. This episode became a focal point for discussions about the fragility of democracy, the dangers of misinformation, and the power of images to both predict and shape our reality. Chapter 9. Richard Branson's Spaceflight, a Billionaire's Journey Predicted. In the 2011 episode The War of Art, we see a man floating in space, enjoying the view. This man bears a striking resemblance to billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson. A harmless animation choice, right? Fast forward to 2021, and Richard Branson makes headlines by actually flying to space on his Virgin Galactic spacecraft. The resemblance between the cartoon and the real-life event was uncanny. Was this a prediction, a coincidence, or simply a case of the Simpsons writers being incredibly observant and maybe a little bit psychic? Whatever the explanation, this prediction, along with many others, has solidified the Simpsons' place in pop culture history as the ultimate soothsayers of our time. Remember that futuristic episode Lisa's Wedding we talked about earlier? Well, it also gave us a glimpse into the future of communication. In one scene, Lisa makes a video call using a device that looks suspiciously like a cross between a telephone and a small television. Now keep in mind, this was 1995. The internet was in its infancy and video calling was the stuff of science fiction. But the Simpsons writers were onto something. Fast forward to the 2010s and smartphones with built-in cameras become ubiquitous. Apps like FaceTime and Zoom make video calling an everyday occurrence. The Simpsons didn't invent video calling, but they certainly envisioned it long before it became mainstream. Even the smallest details in The Simpsons can be surprisingly prescient. In the 1994 episode Lisa on Ice, we see a scene where a character types "beat up Martin" into a primitive digital assistant, only to have it autocorrect to "eat up Martha." At the time, this was just a funny throwaway joke, but it turned out to be eerily prophetic. Years later, as smartphones and autocorrect became ubiquitous, people started experiencing the same frustrating and often hilarious mishaps. This Simpsons joke even caught the attention of Apple engineers, who admitted that it inspired them to improve autocorrect technology. Who knew that a cartoon could have such a real-world impact? The Simpsons doesn't shy away from tackling real-world issues, even in the world of sports. In the 2014 episode You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, Homer is recruited to be a World Cup referee, only to find himself caught in the middle of a FIFA corruption scandal. Just 1 year later, in 2015, a real-life FIFA corruption scandal erupted, leading to the arrest of several high-ranking officials. The Simpsons had seemingly predicted another major event, this time in the world of international soccer. While they didn't get all the details right, Germany won the World Cup in 2014, not a South American team as depicted in the episode, the prediction of the corruption scandal itself was eerily accurate. Chapter 13. The Simpsons often satirizes society's tendency to overreact and censor art. In the 1990 episode Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, Marge leads a campaign to censor the cartoon violence of the Itchy and Scratchy show. This leads to a debate about censorship in Springfield, with Michelangelo's David becoming a target of controversy. Decades later, in the 2010s, Michelangelo's David once again became the subject of censorship debates, this time in the real world. From Russia to the United States, activists called for the statue to be covered up, citing its nudity as offensive. The Simpsons had, in a way, predicted the re-emergence of this debate, highlighting the cyclical nature of censorship and the ongoing tension between artistic expression and societal sensitivities. Remember that time Homer Simpson rocked out with the Rolling Stones? In the 2003 episode How I Spent My Strummer Vacation, Homer attends a rock and roll fantasy camp run by Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. At the end of the episode, they gift Homer a jacket with the words "Guitar Hero" emblazoned on the back. At the time, Guitar Hero was just a funny name for a fictional jacket. But in a strange twist of fate, a real-life video game called Guitar Hero was released in 2005, becoming a massive hit and spawning a whole genre of rhythm games. Was this a case of life imitating art, or did the Simpsons writers have some sort of precognitive gaming knowledge? Whatever the explanation, this prediction, while seemingly insignificant at the time, became another feather in the Simpsons' cap of uncanny predictions. Chapter 15. The Simpsons often explores the anxieties of a changing world, particularly when it comes to technology. In the 2011 episode Replaceable You, Mr. Burns replaces his entire workforce with robots, leading to widespread unemployment and social unrest. While this might have seemed like a far-fetched cartoon scenario at the time, the reality is that automation and artificial intelligence have been steadily replacing jobs in various industries. From manufacturing to customer service, robots are becoming increasingly prevalent in the workforce. The Simpsons didn't invent the concept of robots taking over jobs, but they certainly tapped into a growing societal fear about the future of work in an increasingly automated world. In a truly mind-boggling prediction, The Simpsons even managed to correctly predict a Nobel Prize winner. In the 2010 episode Elementary School Musical, a character mentions that MIT professor Bengt Holmstrom is a good bet to win the Nobel Prize in economics. 6 years later, in 2016, Bengt Holmstrom actually won the Nobel Prize in economics for his contributions to contract theory. This prediction left even the most skeptical viewers scratching their heads. Was it just an incredibly lucky guess, or did the Simpsons writers have access to some sort of insider information? Whatever the explanation, this prediction stands as one of the most specific and accurate in the Simpsons' long history of uncanny foreshadowing. The Simpsons is known for its satirical take on food and consumerism. In the 2011 episode Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badasses song, Lunch Lady Doris is shown preparing school lunches with questionable ingredients, including a label that reads assorted horse parts. While this was clearly meant as a joke, It became eerily relevant in 2013 when a major horse meat scandal erupted in Europe. It was discovered that horse meat had been illegally mislabeled and sold as beef in various processed food products. The Simpsons didn't cause the horse meat scandal, of course, but their satirical take on the food industry proved to be surprisingly prescient. This episode served as a reminder that even the most outlandish cartoon scenarios can sometimes reflect real-world problems. In the world of fashion, trends come and go, but some similarities are just too striking to ignore. In the 2000 episode Bart to the Future, Lisa Simpson is depicted as President of the United States, wearing a purple suit with a string of pearls. Fast forward to 2021, and Kamala Harris is sworn in as Vice President of the United States wearing a strikingly similar outfit, a purple suit with a double-strand pearl necklace. The internet was quick to point out the resemblance, with many hailing the Simpsons as fashion prophets. While this is most likely a coincidence, purple is a common color for political events and pearls are a classic accessory, it's still a fun example of how the Simpsons can sometimes predict the future, even in the realm of fashion. Even in the world of sports, the Simpsons seems to have a knack for predicting the unpredictable. In the 2010 episode Boy Meets Curl, Homer and Marge join a curling team, and eventually lead the United States to victory against Sweden in the Winter Olympics. 8 years later, in a case of life imitating art, the United States men's curling team actually won the gold medal against Sweden at the 2018 Winter Olympics. The Simpsons had done it again, predicting a sporting upset that few saw coming. This prediction, while perhaps not as earth-shattering as some of the others on this list, is a testament to the Simpsons' ability to find humor and make surprisingly accurate predictions in even the most unexpected places. The Simpsons has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to technology, and their depiction of virtual reality is no exception. In the 1991 episode Bart Carney, we see an early version of a VR headset being used for an arcade game. At the time, virtual reality was a niche technology, mostly relegated to research labs and science fiction. But The Simpsons, as they often do, seem to have a glimpse into the future. Fast forward to the 2010s, and virtual reality gaming explodes in popularity, with companies like Oculus and HTC releasing consumer-grade VR headsets. The Simpsons didn't invent VR, but they certainly recognized its potential long before it became mainstream. So there you have it, folks. 20 times The Simpsons seem to predict the future. From political scandals to technological advancements, they've covered it all with their signature blend of satire and social commentary. But the question remains, how did they do it? Are the Simpsons writers time travelers? Do they possess some sort of sixth sense? Or are these predictions just a series of uncanny coincidences? Whatever the explanation, one thing is certain. The Simpsons has an undeniable knack for tapping into the zeitgeist, reflecting our hopes, fears, and even predicting our future. Until next time, keep watching the skies, and maybe keep an eye on the Simpsons. You never know what they might predict next.